Wow.
And while not all the results are in, we are going to break down a few of them for you this morning.
And here to help us do that, we need former D.C. Council member Michael Brown, finally back with us. Welcome back to Great Day Washington.
Good to see you guys. You guys look great.
Thank you.
Great to have you. Obviously a crazy night, but
Yes.
I think that one of the big things I noticed was that we kept hearing about this big red wave, and it didn't. The wave wasn't really as big as many had predicted.
Didn't quite materialize,
Right.
and I think for several reasons. One, of course, Democrats were going to reject kind of that MAGA election denier kind of Trumpism. But it seems that Republicans also rejected it. I mean, Donald Trump had a bad night personally last night, but Trumpism is still alive, and that still has to be defeated, depending on what side of the aisle you're on.
Right.
But a lot of his candidates went down very hard. We still have to, Arizona, for example, Carrie Lake is one of those huge election deniers. She's right now losing, and we'll see what happens as more of the ballots come in. But a lot of the headliners, except for J.D. Vance in Ohio, who beat Tim Ryan, but that's a red seat anyway. So there wasn't much of a red wave, and frankly, the House is still in play. I still think the House is going to flip to Republican, but the Senate clearly may come down to Georgia.
Okay.
And you said Georgia will probably be a runoff here.
Unless something weird happens over the next 12 hours with more ballots, but I don't think anybody's going to get to 50%.
Yeah, because they have to have the 50%. Otherwise, it has to go to the
50%
runoff.
plus one.
Plus one, yes.
To be exact.
So it's not over there yet.
No, it is not.
Wow.
A lot still up to say. We're going to start in Maryland. Let's get to some of the Maryland big headlines. The Associated Press reports Democrat Wes Moore defeated Republican Dan Cox in the race for governor. Moore will become the first black governor in the state of Maryland. And our Larry Miller actually has an exclusive interview with Wes Moore. That's coming up on the noon news today. A surprise at all for you?
No, I think in this, like in D.C., which I'm sure we'll talk about some of the local stuff in a minute. Maryland is traditionally a blue state. So once you get past the primary, usually, except for in the Hogan case, of course.
Right. Except what we've seen the last
for 8 years.
Yeah.
Usually the Democrat does win. And Wes Moore, I'm proud to say the governor-elect is a good friend, and I'm so proud of him. And he's going to be a great governor. And frankly, probably over the next year or so, you're going to hear his name bantered about being on the list for who's going to be president and run for president 24 or possibly 28. But you'll definitely hear his name bantered about.
I saw an alert that he is the third black governor in our history
That's
ever.
correct. That's correct.
Can you believe that?
And he's right next door. Well, both and two of the three were in the Washington D.C. in the DMV. Obviously, Governor Wilder of Virginia several years ago, and now Governor-elect Moore.
Wow. That makes me feel a little better, but I don't like the stat overall. Meantime, Maryland's 6th district race is still too close to call this morning. Incumbent Democrat David Trone is still trailing Republican challenger Neil Parrott by a few thousand votes. That sounds pretty close. This morning, we are down to waiting for the absentee and provisional ballots to be counted. For background, the 6th district is a redrawn district. It was supposed to heavily favor Democrats, but a legal challenge evened the playing field and has Republican Neil Parrott in the lead by just that slim margin. That doesn't sound like a lot to me, right?
No, and a lot of folks are not going to concede yet until every single vote is counted. And frankly, if you're a MAGA or election denier, you may never concede, ever. So that I think folks also need to be prepared for that, not just on the federal side, but some of these local state races. Some of these folks may never concede because they're going to think unless they win, it's not rigged. If they lose, it's rigged.
Oh, of course. Another question on the ballot that had a lot of people talking. A vote to legalize marijuana in Maryland. Now, this would be for recreational marijuana for people over the age of 21. The Associated Press projects voters have approved that item and would go into effect July 1st. And by a large margin there, 2/3 to a third of the vote. It seems like at least maybe because where we are, but it seems like that seems to be the direction states are going.
Absolutely, and it's like anything that where things change over time. For example, it started to trickle out with gay marriage, same-sex marriage, and D.C. was one of the first states or jurisdictions to approve it. And then obviously history, you don't want to ever be on the wrong side of history.
Right.
Same now with marijuana. Now it's growing in different states around the country, and it's the right thing to do.
See how it works in a couple states. Those states that were guaranteed to legalize it, and then the other.
And the revenue. See, that's also the thing.
You forget about the revenue part.
It is a moneymaker.
That is true.
We do want to get to Virginia now because the results are actually in for the hotly contested 7th district race. Democrat incumbent Abigail Spanberger is projected to be the winner over Republican Yesley Vega. Vega's team told us last night that without all of the absentee ballots counted, they still remain confident about the results to favor them. So it's just a projected winner right now.
I thought this would be a bigger margin. Was that a surprise?
No, well, at least depending on which poll you looked at.
Right.
They showed it being close all,
Okay.
Because that is a very purple district. It actually was a red district until it was flipped by Abigail in 2018, and then she's obviously keeping the seat now, which is great. Now this is Miss Vega, for example. I don't think she'll ever concede. She's one of those people. I don't think the folks in the media are going to continue to excuse me, stick microphones in her face and say, hey, are you going to concede? I don't think she will.
All right, now to District 10 in Virginia. Incumbent Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton will hold on to her seat for a third term after defeating Hung Cao 53 to 47%. Cao was trying to flip the seat back to GOP where it was for decades before the 2018 midterms. Cao seemed to blame low Republican turnout for not winning the race. Are we hearing a lot of that? I feel like people were out in droves. I mean, the numbers are up, right? That's all we talked about.
Maybe they just didn't like his message.
Right.
I mean, that's possible too when candidates lose. And his was frankly, a very extreme message, very far right. And that district is more moderate. So.
Oh, we saw so many ads from Virginia.
So many ads. I'm thankful that part is over.
Yeah, absolutely. And but if you live in Georgia, it's not over.
True.
That's true.
I know.
That's
Now
true.
I have pity for them now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're going to run through a few things that happened in D.C., turn to some of the top races here. We'll start with the race for mayor. The Associated Press projects Democrat Muriel Bowser has won a third consecutive term. She becomes the district's first three-term mayor since Marion Barry.
And now the race for D.C. delegate to the House of Representatives. Incumbent Democrat Eleanor Holmes Norton has held this seat since 1991. Not even a race there. And the Associated Press projects that she has won re-election.
And then a ballot item that has grabbed a lot of attention here, Initiative 82. It would raise the minimum wage for tipped workers in D.C. to $16.10 an hour by the year 2027. The latest results show that voters are approving that initiative by a pretty wide margin. I felt like that was the one that we discussed the most because everything else did not seem like there was much of a contest.
And, obviously, I'm sure a lot of restaurant owners didn't like the initiative, but it's the right thing to do, especially with the cost of living these days, especially in the District of Columbia or the DMV. It's important that folks have a livable wage.
I feel like, with Holmes, Norton, and Bowser, it was no contest. Maybe more in the primary, but not in the midterm.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
Obviously, really no surprise with those results.
No, and like we talked about with Maryland, D.C. is kind of a primary jurisdiction. When the primary is over, that's usually the person that'll win.
I like that we don't have to deal with any of this uncertainty or
Just watch
runoffs
Georgia
in our
from
area.
afar.
But there's still tight races for the at-large seat.
Yeah.
There were three incumbents running against each other for 2 seats.
Oh, that's right.
For 2 seats, and it looks like one of the Alyssa Silverman may be the odd person out, and Kenny McDuffie and Anita Bonds. Looks like they're going to go on to win.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
All right, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, thank you very much for having me.
Great
Good
to
seeing
have
you
you
guys.
back.
Thank you very much.
There are several ways that you can find the latest election results this morning. Just scan this QR code right here and go to WUSA9.com/elections, or you can download our free WUSA9 app.